Okay, today Darren Gorosky is our guest host. He will be speaking today, and our platinum sponsor for this session is Checkpoint. Checkpoint Software Technologies Ltd. is a leading provider of cybersecurity solutions to governments and corporate enterprises globally. Its solutions protect customers from fifth-generation cyber attacks with an industry-leading catch rate of malware, ransomware, and other types of attacks. Checkpoint offers multi-level security architecture, Infinity, Total Protection, with Gen V Advanced Threat Prevention, which defends enterprises, cloud, network, mobile devices held information. Checkpoint provides the most comprehensive and intuitive one point of control security management system. Checkpoint protects over 100,000 organizations of all sizes. Their website is www.checkpoint.com. Take it away, Taryn.
Thank you so much. All right, well, hello, everybody. Let's see, get this set up over here. So we're going to do a quick class on basic web programming. My contact information is right there on the screen here. I'll put it back up at the end, and of course, it will live there forever. When I'm done with the class, the files that I have created here live, I'll go ahead and drop right here if you want to download them and see what they are, or take them and edit them back home. I'll put those there. Then, of course, when we're done, please go here and rate the class. So I'm going to be the first person that rates my class at 5 stars. So if you guys can go in there and rate it whatever you thought it was worth, please go ahead and do that. So I'm going to go pretty quick through a lot of the basic stuff, and then I'm going to slow down when we get to some of the stuff that gets a little bit more confusing. But we got to do a little bit of building here. And so what we have, we're going to build a web page here. It's an HTML web page. It's living on one of my servers here in the city of Goldsboro that Brad has set up for me. And so it's a blank web page. So this page right here is that blank web page. And so if I save that document and refresh this document here that is just says hello world, one line, no other code, is a valid HTML page and will display in any browser and is a valid website or a web page. But the better way to do it, is something like this. And this is sort of the basic body of a real web page. And so if I do this, nothing is going to change on the page. It looks identical. But this is the proper structure that you should have for working on a website. So let's see. So what I'm going to do now is we're going to just do a couple quick things. So I have hello world in there. I have a picture, and so I'm going to put in a picture. And to put in a picture, you just write a little code like this. And my little picture dude is a GIF file that I have located in this exact same folder. And so if I save that and put that in there, you're going to see that. And then if I take this other picture and I put it in there, you're going to see this. So the images are there, the words are there, but the HTML, what the browser is doing is say, great, I'm going to print this. And then you want me to take the picture, I'm going to put the picture out. So it puts it out right next to it. And then it's going to put out this picture right next to it. Well, it's there, it's just gigantic. It's right next to it, but it's really big. So there are some things you can do to make that work a little better. So there's some code built in where you can say, well, I want this to only be 200, which is 200 pixels wide. And so now it's 200. And I can add the same thing here. If I wanted to make it even smaller, make it even smaller, I could do that. But I want to leave this one without being sized because I want to show you this. This is a great image. So HTML is really the structure behind a web document. It's the skeleton is really the best way to describe it. CSS, which we're going to do today also, is what makes things look good. It does not change the skeletal structure of it at all, but you can do all sorts of coloring and shading and borders and stuff like that. And then JavaScript allows interaction because a web page that is built with HTML And HTML and CSS, there's absolutely, not absolutely, almost no interaction that you can do with that page. But once you start adding JavaScript, now you can interact, you can do things with it. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to just paste in some text here. So I'm going to go down here, put a few blank lines in there, and we're going to paste in some text. So now when I save and refresh this, it's going to look horrible because it's what the browser is doing is it's writing out NCLGISA, symposium, blah, blah, blah. After this H, it's just going to go right to that B. It doesn't, we have to then format it so that it looks good. So there's some built-in formatting that goes within a page. And so one of the first things you can do is there's something called BR, which stands for a line break. And so that just takes something and goes down to the next line. So that works really well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy that here, 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 here. And so it's going to take each one and put it down to the next line. So this will work. You can do this. And if you say, well, you know what, Darren, I kind of want that to be 2 lines down. Well, you put in another BR and you're going to do it. And this works fine. There's some built-in things you can do to make the HTML work. So, but to make it look even a little bit better, there's some more built-in things that we're going to do. So what I'm going to do now is, let's see, I'm going to take this again. I'm going to paste it right down here again, but this time there's a built-in tag called H1. Okay, so let's do this. So that built-in tag of H1 will make something big. Typo, see that? I didn't close it. So this tag you open and you close. And so now when I refresh, this is what I have. So I want to do some other stuff with this. So the biennial symposiums, well, that's sort of important too. So I'm going to put that inside of an H2. And H2 just basically says, hey, you're going to be important, but you're a little bit smaller. So it's like a subtitle. And then for this other stuff down here, I kind of want to separate some stuff out. And so what you're going to see all over the web is something called a div. All a div is a way to separate something. So I am saying that these 4 lines, they're sort of on their own. All right, so a question nobody's asked yet, but some of you may have, is a lot of tags in HTML have a start and an end. And the end is the same word, but with the slash. This H2 starts and it ends with the slash. There are some like this, they don't have to end. You just do it. But if you were to write this, it would be identical. It doesn't change anything. So there's just some things you can do to sort of get away with that. So I put in that little div right there. And let's see, I'm going to put in some of these. And the reason I'm putting in a bunch of blank lines is it allows me to then scroll the page up so you can see it a little higher. Okay. Let's see. Okay, so now I have that div built in there. And then what I want to do is, well, these things, Spring 20, these conferences here, I kind of want them to show up a little bit different. I want them, to sort of you to get what they are. So I'm going to put in another div there, and then I'm going to close my div. And when I close that div and I indent this stuff, it doesn't change how it looks on the website, but it makes it so that it's easier to read, because now you can tell that these lines are inside of here. So I want to create some spacing here because there's definitely something needs to show up there and be a little bit different. But I want these to sort of be like a bulleted list. So HTML gives you a list. So UL stands for unordered list. So I start my unordered list. I put in a list item and then another list item, and now I get this. So these are built-in tags that sort of format some data for you. So now I have a nice title, I have a subtitle, I have a description, and then I have a list of stuff. So you've all seen this on the web, and this is exactly how it's created. So then another really common thing you want to do is, well, this registration, I want this to be a link to go somewhere. So to build a link, you do this. And now where do I want that link to go? So I want that link to go right here. So this is a link to the agenda for the conference. So when I save and load this, now that is a hyperlink. If I click on it, it's going to go right to that page. So basic HTML, you can format a really nice page. So let me pause right there. Any questions about setting up a basic HTML document and some of these basic tags that I've been using?
They're all mesmerized by you, Darren.
So I am using Notepad++. Notepad++, it is a great tool for writing code, primarily because it does all the color coding for you. It gives you lines to help you know where things are indented. It's got a few other really cool built-in things to it, and it has some autocomplete features. So if I'm working on a file that has a lot of stuff I've already written, it will remember what that stuff is. So there's the registration. It knows I've typed that word before. So as I'm writing really common phrases, it'll remember them. And as I'm doing actual code, it gives me a hint of the different pieces of code that I can put in. So you definitely want to use a text editor that is designed for code. So, all right, so that was sort of the quick stuff. We got through that. But now what we want to do is we want to do some stuff, and I want to show you some CSS. And I want to show you how we can make things look a little bit better. So I have written, so let's see, we're going to delete all this. Okay. So I have my div, and I'm going to close my div. So there's something that you can put in it called a class. It's sort of like naming whatever this object is. So I'm going to call it people. You're going to see why in just a minute. And then inside this, I'm going to put in Felina. I'm going to put in Darren, and I'm going to put in Glenn. Okay. So if I show this, that's really, it doesn't look very good. But what I really want to show, and so this is something that is more common. So I'm just going to paste this in. So this is something that's more common, right? You have a person who then has characteristics after them. So in our case, just like on this event conference, we have board member, attendee, speaker. We have different flags or labels to give them. So the better way to build this is to separate out all of this data. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up with a div, and the class is going to be person. Okay, so if you see the pattern here, I'm using the plural up here, and inside is going to be a person. So inside here, I'm going to put in Ray. Okay, but to make it even better, I really want to separate out more stuff. So name. There. So a span is just like a div, but it doesn't create a new line automatically. It's really the only difference. So now I have Ray. I separated that out. He is a board member. So I'm going to put that here. He's an attendee. I'm going to put that here. And I'm going to call this a ribbon. And I'm going to call this a ribbon. So I'm done with Ray. So when I save, we have Ray, he's a board member and an attendee. Okay. So for the interest of time, I did that exact same thing 2 more times, and I'm going to paste it in here. So when I click on this, you can see this green line. That's the parent. Inside, I'm sorry, I made a typo. Who caught it? There. Let's try that again. So when I click here, you can see that the person starts here, ends here. This person starts here, ends here. This person starts here and ends here. So when I save this, it still doesn't look very nice, right? Because all this is doing is spitting out these words. The div will actually put a line break in. So it's going to put Ray, board member attending, then it's going to go do a line break. So now this is where CSS comes in. So this is where I can take a very bland looking list like this, and I can make it look very similar to what we have on the other website, on our agenda website. So the first thing I want to do is, if there's a person, I want to put some space above and below. So CSS, which stands for Cascading Style Sheets, you do it with this dot notation, and you say, listen, if you're a person, I want you to have a margin on the top, 20 pixels. So when I save and run this, it's going to put space between each one of them, or it's not. So I made a typo. What's going on there? Who can see what I did wrong? Oh, I know exactly what I did. Okay, so I have to tell this web page, I want you to use this external file. So that was my bad. So what I need to do is I need to tell it right here that you're going to use a style sheet called NCLGISA.css, which is what this document is called. So you have to sort of call it in, right? You have to tell it that I want to do something with it. So now let's try this again. All right. Did I make another typo? Oh, let's see. It's not working. What did I do, guys? Let's see. All right, so we're going to do an inspect here. We're going to look. Ah, it's there. It's calling it in, but it's being cached. That's interesting. So I'm going to change the name of it. Because for some reason, there it was. It was just being cached from an old file that I was using. So that was my browser giving me a little bit of grief, saying, you know what, Darren, we're going to cache this. Okay, so now that I have some spacing between there, well, now I want to do some other stuff. I want to make things stand out a little bit better. So if you're a name, what I want you to do is I want you to be big. So I'm going to say font size 18 pixels. Okay, so now a name is going to be big. Okay, so you can't tell, right? So let me make it a little bigger. So font size 28. So the name is now really big. So we're going to take this down to something else. And then, I kind of want it to stand out a little bit. So see what I did there? I scrolled down because I didn't have to type the whole thing. I want it to stand out. So I'm going to make it bold. And so now it's size 22 and it's bold, right? Okay. So now for the ribbon, well, just like they do on the site, just like they do on their site, the ribbon, I want to have a border. I want the ribbon to be, the border to be 1 pixel. I want it to be a solid border, and I want it to be black. Okay. So now I have a border around each one. I'm going to pause and show you something really cool. So this website here, W3 Schools, is one of the best websites to learn HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And so what I just did right here is I followed all these instructions and I created this one right here. 5 pixels, solid red. Well, I just chose 1 pixel, solid and black. Now I don't have to write black. I could write a color. That will work also. But this website is great for learning that stuff. So there, I made it red. Okay. So, well, Darren, that's not really that good looking, because the website, they do it a whole lot better. So padding, right? I want to do some padding inside. So the padding is what's inside that element. And so if I do padding of 6 pixels, now it's going to put a little spacing inside there. So you see how we're building it up? So now that we're building it up a little bit, and now I want to add some margin on the left of 8 pixels. So what's that going to do for me? It's going to separate them a little bit. Okay. So now if I want to make it really cool looking, I'm going to put in a border radius of, let's say, 4 pixels. And then I want to look at it. And it's going to round the corners for me. Well, the one they do on the website really looks a lot different, and it looks a lot better. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to change this to something like maybe 12. There we go. So now that's really similar to what the conference website is doing, right? So if we go look at the conference website, you can see the tags that they have next to these people look like this. So that's what we're creating here. So maybe my padding is too much. So maybe they have a little bit of less padding. So I could change my padding and say, listen, for the top and bottom, I only want to be 2 pixels, but the left and right, I want to be 16 pixels. So it increased it on the left and right, but decreased it on the top. So with CSS, I can do all this really cool stuff. Okay. So then if I want to do something even cooler, I can say, you know what? If you're a ribbon, but you're the board member ribbon, I want you to be even different. So cascading style sheets, what it means is it's going to take all those codes, start from the top and go down to the bottom. So I looked it up already, and the color code is 377D3. Okay. So board is now going to get that color. So what happens here is this element, this board member element, which is right here, is a ribbon inside of a person, which is inside of people. So, I'm sorry, here, board. I need to add that there. I need to add this here. So you can have things with more than one class. So what I'm telling the code is this board member is a ribbon, which means it's going to apply all of this. But it's also a board, which means it's going to apply just that. So I can do the exact same thing. I'm going to just paste this in, do the exact same thing for speaker, for attendee, for sponsor, right? The exact same thing. So I'll save that. And now I've colored those things. So the last thing I really need to do is I need to change the border color. So the border color for the board, I also want to be B377D3. And so now the border color of this one is that. So this is where CSS is interesting, because I told the CSS to make a ribbon have a border color of red. But after I did that, and I said the board is going to now have the border color of this, it overwrote it. If I would change the position of this and put it further up in my code, it's going to go back to red because this comes after this. So CSS stands for cascading. So it starts at the top and goes down. So now I'm going to put this back down there. And now the colors work out right. Does that make sense? So is the CSS a different value for the same element in different classes? Which one's it? So I think I did just answer it. Awesome. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to paste in this one here that I did a little moment ago. Okay. This one is a person, still is a person, just like all the other people, but I'm also giving it this extra class of BP, and he has a different label for sponsor. And so if you see, I already have that sponsor one over here. So I'm going to save and refresh this. Okay, so Steve is a business partner, and this is what it says, but he's also a BP. So this is where you can really control things. So what I want to do is I say, you know what, for business partners, I don't want them to have the rounded corners. I don't want that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, listen, if you are a BP and you have a ribbon, I don't want you to have the border, to have that rounded border. So I say, if you're a BP and you have the ribbon, so the BP is the parent, ribbon is the child. BP is the parent, ribbon is the child that's underneath this parent. So if I say you're a ribbon that's underneath BP, I want you to have a border radius 0. So I'm going to stop right there, because if you can understand what I just did right there, if this made sense to you, how I can give as many different classes as I want to this, I can make up as many as I want. But when you assign it the CSS, it starts at the top and goes down, and you can control things underneath something else. So what I'd like you to do, I'd like to do a quick poll, not a real poll, just a hands up thing. So inside your chat, you've got a, what is it? A little, couple of options. Reactions. There you go, the reactions. You can put in your reactions, and you can put in a check mark or an X sign. Put in the little check mark if you understood this concept. Put the X if maybe you're still a little bit confused. It's good. We got 9 check marks. Maybe some people a little confused or not sure. But this concept of constantly building stuff where you're targeting this, that's what we call it, we're targeting this more and more specifically. That's what creates a really good looking website. Let's see. So great. Okay. All right, so now we're going to add just a little bit more code in here. So I'm going to do something, let's see. We're going to add another div down here. And I'm going to call it definition. Okay, and you're like, Darren, what's the definition of? Another really good thing about these editors, that if I make a typo, it color codes it different, so I can visually see. What I did wrong. So the definition is a board member is someone who serves on the board. Okay, board member is somebody who serves on the board. Great. I'm going to put another definition. Okay. I'm going to copy and paste to make it quicker. And we'll push that over. Great. So now I have 3 definitions. Okay. Board member, an attendee, and a business partner. Okay. So I'm going to refresh the page over here. And now I have those 3 things, which really don't, I mean, what's the big deal, right? That's just, you have 3 things out there, Darren, no big deal. All right. So we're going to jump into the next section, which is JavaScript, because now we want to actually interact with this page. We want to do some stuff that's kind of cool. And so we're going to add some JavaScript into this. Because what I want to happen is if somebody clicks on board member, I want this definition to show. If somebody clicks on attendee, I want this definition to show. So I want it to sort of toggle on and off. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to give definition, and I'm going to give it some, make it bigger. Okay, so let's refresh that. And that didn't work because I misspelled definition. There you go. So a good question that that comes up a lot is, let's say I wanted to make all of these names bold. Okay, if I want to make all these names bold, I did it over here by calling font weight bold. I could, as many of you may know, you can put in a bold tag like that, and that will be bolded. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this one out for a second, save all my files. And so Glenn is still bolded because I added that bold here. So then you decide, well, I want to go add the bold to Darren. I want to add it to Steve. Well, you can see how now you're writing a lot of code over and over again. Well, if you gave it this class, I could then go over here and give that same boldness to every single one of those. So then your boss comes to you and says, well, no, we no longer want them bold. Well, that's fine. When you remove one line, now they're all gone. So that's the advantage of using the CSS here versus handwriting in bolds or italics or stuff like that. Just like I did earlier with the size of the picture, I did it inside the HTML element, but it would be better if I had done it inside of CSS because it allowed me to do more with it. So the concept of CSS is this CSS is the same for every page on the website, which means every time there's a ribbon, it's always going to look identical. And that's how you ensure your brand across every page that you have. All right, so we're going to move on to do some JavaScript because we want to actually do some interaction with this. So you guys ready for that? Hope all this silence just means, man, this is riveting, Darren. Can't wait. Okay.
And there's no questions at this time either, Darren.
Excellent. So let's see, we're going to go now. Okay, so I made a, let's see, this is the div that ends and starts with people. So I have these inside of that. Now, like I said, all this is for, all these divs are for, is for organization. So if I put them here, nothing's going to change. It is just for organization and how it works on the page. So I can do a blank line in there, which will not change the output at all, but it helps me to understand what's there. If I were to do this, it's identical, but it organizes it in a way that you can read. So as a coder, you would do stuff like this. So when you're, it's called readability. You want people to understand what in the world you're talking about. So it doesn't change whether I do it this way or the other way. So we'll take those back out. Okay. So now what I want to do is I want, when you click on this to show up. So the first thing I need to do is I want to say, if you're a definition, I want you to be gone. I don't want you to be visible on the page at all. So there's a CSS for display none, which makes it disappear. Okay. All right. So now you have to, this next little part, I'm sort of just going to fill in, and you'll sort of have to take my word for it, and you can learn it on your own. But in order to do JavaScript, you have to have a JavaScript file. And to make JavaScript easier, I'm going to use what's called Jquery. Jquery makes JavaScript so much easier. So when you put in a line like this at the top of your page, you put that one line in, and you can do so much more. This second line right here just says, hey, Darren, for this file, I want you to use this JavaScript file. Okay. So I basically called this file in. Okay. So this line right here, you just have to take for granted. And then this stuff right here, you just sort of, you start with that and you move on. So for instance, if I wanted to go here and learn some basic JavaScript, let's open this up again. I want to do some basic JavaScript. not a good example. There we go. Okay, so let's see, jQuery. So this is, for instance, what I'm doing. So I'm going to go try it for yourself. So you see how they have this line right here? You have to have that line at the beginning of the file. And so as you're learning this stuff, you're going to see, oh, look, they have this the same way Darren put it in. And then they have this the same way Darren put it in. And it's all the stuff inside there that is actually going to do all the work. So sometimes you need a little help getting your initial document set up to make sure you have all the right files. And so that's what I've done here. Okay. So now what I want to do is I say, okay, well, now I want, when you click on one of these, I want something to happen. So this is another one of those things you'll sort of copy the first 40 times you do it. And then once you get it, you're going to understand it. It takes a little bit. And so you sort of have to just take it for granted right now is, okay, that's okay. I'm going to understand it. Because what this is saying is, listen, if I'm going to click on something and I'm going to click on something that says board. Okay. So what I want is when somebody clicks on something that has this tag. So whenever somebody clicks on this, this, or this, that's what this is saying. If you click on the dot board, which is this, I want you to do something. And so this is another thing that just bear with me. Okay. So what you're going to end up doing is you're going to copy this and use it over and over again. You don't fully have to understand how it works. At some point, it's just going to click. And when it clicks for you, that's when it gets really exciting. So what I just set up here is the JavaScript that says, if somebody clicks on the board, I want you to do whatever is right here. So there's a really cool tool inside your browser called the console, and it helps you with JavaScript. So to make sure my stuff is working, I want to say hello, and I want to put it out in the console, which is right here. So I'm going to save that, refresh this page. And when I click on board member, it says hello. So what that tells me is this is working the way it's supposed to. It's recognizing the click and it's doing this. If I click on attendee, nothing happens. So this tells me that my code is good. So now that I know my code is good, I want to do some stuff. So the super simple, easiest thing you're going to do is I want to say, well, listen, if the code is good, I want you to take definition and I want you to show it. So this command right here, show, basically is exactly what you think it is. It's going to take whatever was hidden and make it show up. So I'm going to save that. I'm going to refresh. So now when I click on this, it's going to recognize that I clicked on the board. It's going to do what's in here, which says if your definition, this, I want you to show. There you go. Well, okay, Darren, that's good, but they all showed. You're right, they did. So now if I click this again, nothing's going to happen because it's already there. You can't show something more than it's already shown. So there's a really cool command in jQuery called toggle. I'm going to refresh this page, and toggle is going to do just what you think it does. Click, 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 click. It turns it on or off. All right? So that's kind of cool. But Darren, that doesn't make any sense because I want the correct one to show up. No problem. So I'm going to say, okay, this definition is also the definition for a board member. Now, like I said before, these classes, you can write whatever you want. Does not matter the word. It does not matter if there's dashes or underscores, as long as it's one continuous thing. There's some characters that it can't be, but I can write whatever I want here. So that's going to be definition board member. This is going to be definition attendee. Definition, what is this? BP. Okay. So now I have extra classes, right? I refresh the page, nothing happens. No, there's no change. So now what I can do is I can do things a little bit different. I can say, if you clicked on board, I only want the board to toggle. So this is another aha moment. So do you see the relationship here that says if they click on board, I want, oh, I made a mistake. Sorry, let's do board. I want anything that's a board member definition to toggle, which means these will do nothing. Okay, so let's refresh that. Board member, one showed up. Attendee, speaker, well, nothing's happened yet. So let me go ahead and add the next one. So all I'm going to do is duplicate this, and I'm going to say the attendee, absolutely. Attendee, attendee. So now if somebody clicks on an attendee, I want you to find the definition attendee and toggle it. Hopefully that's making sense. So now board member, on, off, attendee, on, board member, on, attendee, off. So that's JavaScript. You now get to interact with your page and make things show up. And so there is absolutely a better way to do what I'm doing. So what I'm doing now is a very inefficient way, but it shows you how it's done. The more efficient way would be when somebody clicks on a definition, I then want you to figure out which definition they clicked on and open that one. So I could do this with, if I had a bunch of these, I could do it all with 4 lines instead of having 4 different ones of these. So, and that gets a little confusing, but everything can be done a little bit faster. But this is designed to sort of show you how it works. And so that's clicking. So now, but when I mouse over this, Darren, why don't I get the little clicky symbol? Oh, that's CSS. That's CSS. So when somebody hovers over a ribbon, I want the cursor to be a pointer. And now it's a pointer. So a lot of times when you see the pointer on a website, it's because the person who wrote that page wanted that pointer to show up. There are times when I make hidden links where I purposely don't use this. So the user only sees this right here, that symbol with the text symbol, and they don't know they can click on it, but you actually can. So everything on a page is designed with a purpose, for a reason. Yeah, pretty cool, not so cool, ideas, questions? We're gonna do a little more JavaScript next. Cool, appreciate it. Oh yeah, we're gonna do that next. Yep, I'm gonna show you how you can control where something appears next. Absolutely. All right, so let's go ahead and start going into the next stuff. Okay, so we're gonna go down here and I'm gonna create a div purely for organizational purposes. There's also a really cool tag called HR. HR stands for horizontal rule, puts a line in. So it helps you separate things out. But I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna call this our JavaScript. And I'm gonna go over here and I'm gonna make some CSS for that. And I don't wanna use that HR. I wanna say border, 1 pixel, solid. We're gonna make a nice light gray. Sorry, for the border, we're gonna do black. For the background color, I'm gonna do actually I'm gonna do 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, a light gray. Let's refresh, see what that looks like. Okay, and the reason why you can't see anything in there is because there's nothing in there. I have to write some stuff before it'll actually show me how big it is. So you see what I did is I made it a gray box with a black border. Well, it looks really funny right there. So let me add some margin to the top. Let's add 40 pixels worth of margin. And now it's completely separated. And now to make it look good, I'm gonna add in some padding. Great, I added in some padding, so now it looks good. But what I really want to do is this. Input type equals text. Input, let's see. ID equals number. Does anyone know the difference between a ID and a class? Go ahead and unmute yourself and answer if you know. So I could call this class first number, or I could call it ID. The only difference is an ID is meant to be it's the only thing on the page that can have that ID. So it's meant to be, it's a very, very unique. But so you use it sometimes just to, it's just to label things. All right. So we have two boxes there. Okay. So then what I want to do is I want to take another input, and this one's going to be a button. The ID for this one is going to be solve, and the value is going to be solve. And so we can capitalize that. Okay. There, I have a button. Okay. Well, now I want to put an input type equals text ID equals answer. Okay. And that's where the answer is going to go. Okay. So now what I want to happen is when you put a number in there and you put a number in there and click this button, it's going to do math and put the answer out over here. All right. Well, Jeff, I'm sorry if it's the worst class. I hope I can do better for you. I'll work on that. All right. So now what I want to do is, what I need to say is, if somebody click. Okay, so here's something different. The pound symbol is for ID. The dot is for a class. I could use the other one. I'm doing this because there's really only one first number. And so I'm just emphasizing that you can sort of make it unique, okay? So again, this is the part you just sort of have to understand, and now I'm inside there. So let's do another console. Am I here? So what should happen is when I click on this button, I get am I here? So now I know that my click that I put on this one is working. Okay, so now that it's working, now JavaScript says you have to declare variables. And so a variable is just like any other math class. I'm going to store some data somewhere. So variable X, okay, is equal to, now, this stuff up here where you go after something and then you do something with it is the same thing I'm going to do right here. I'm going to say it's equal to first number, but what about the first number? Well, its value. And so this right here, let's do jquery.val. So val, this is, it's helping you understand that the val will give you the value of whatever that input is. Okay, so this val is what that is, and so you'll learn that. So it's equal to the val. So then I want to see if I know if I did that right. Okay, so I'm going to say, listen, if somebody clicks on that solve, I want you to pick whatever the value of this first box is and store it in X, and then output X. So I want to see if I know what I'm doing. All right, so let's see. I put a number in there, hit solve, and look at that. The number came out. So I know my code is working. So now that I know my code is working, I'm going to do the second one. All right, there we go. First number, second number. All right, now I have to do some math. So in any programming languages, all programming languages, you have a function. Right? It's just like on your calculator. It's just like in any math class you took. You have a function, you call it, in this case, whatever I want. And I tell it, listen, I'm going to give you two variables. I'm going to give you an X and I'm going to give you a Y. What I want you to do is make a variable called answer, and I want it to equal X times Y. And then I want you to give it back to me. And there's a better way to write this. This is really for demonstration purposes. So I made a function. I'm going to give it 2 numbers. I want you to multiply those together. I want you to give it back to me. Okay. So now I'm going to make another variable up here called the answer is equal to what? Well, I just wrote it. It's equal to calculate x times y. So I created the x and y here based on the value of something. I then pass it to this function, which I misspelled. And I'm going to get the, actually, I'm going to leave the misspell in there so you can see it. So now I'm going to put some numbers in here. And I hit, oh, look at that. I hit solve and I got an error. And it says calcult is not defined. Oh, I made a spelling error. So I'll fix that spelling error. So now when I run it, I'm not going to get that error, but nothing happens. I mean, why nothing happened?
You have to output it to the box.
There you go. So I have to tell it, I want you to find the input that has an ID of answer, and I want the value to be equal to the answer. So find the thing with the ID of answer, which is this, and I want the value of that to be the answer, which I just calculated right there. So 5, 6, click, and now I get 30. That's JavaScript. So, but I'm doing this math here, but I want the answer to show up here, maybe next to Ray's name or something. Great, well, let's do that. So I'm going to go up here and let's say we'll put it on top of all the people. Above all the people, I'm going to give it a div, an ID is answer here. We can write whatever we want, and it's going to be empty. There's nothing in it. So when I refresh this page, that div is up here, but there's nothing in it. So I can also just do this. I'm going to copy that. There. Now I say find whatever the answer is, which the answer box, and give it the value of the answer. And now I'm saying, oh, and also find this div that has the ID of this, put the answer there also. So a bunch of numbers, solved. Uh-oh, didn't work. What did I do? All right, and this is part of programming. Let's see, I made a mistake. Thank you. So, a good catch. So when I'm outputting to a input type, it's called value. But in this case, I want to put HTML inside of here because this is a div. So I absolutely made a mistake. And I'm going to show you what happens here. This will go away. So when I load my page, I have text there right here. But as soon as I click this button and this runs, the HTML of this is going to be replaced with whatever this is. All right, there, put in a bunch of numbers, solve. See that? Here and here. Now, imagine you do that 1,000 times over with a SQL database, with a bunch of other data. Every web page you visit is done just like this, but just on a bigger scale. That's it. Just a massively bigger scale. Can't really explain it any more than that. For instance, this is one of my JavaScript files, and see, it's all the same stuff over and over and over again. All this JavaScript doing the same thing to calculate all sorts of stuff. But every single thing on that page is just this stuff repeated over and over again, pulling data from SQL. So like this stuff here where I have Ray Darren, Glenn, no programmer would ever write this 4 times. They would pull the data from a database and loop through the same piece of code 4 times. So that's what PHP is great for, is PHP or any other programming language or even JavaScript. You create this one time, you then loop it as many times as needed to output whatever that data is. And this is it. This is all programming is. It's you have to know the HTML. You have to understand what the CSS, how this relates, and then you learn how to do this. Now, these are 3 languages, which technically CSS and HTML are not called programming languages. It's a language, but not a programming language. But PHP is where you can do calculations on the server. JavaScript, you do the calculations in the browser. Yeah, so listen, we've only got 3 minutes left. Please chat some questions, unmute your microphone, ask me some stuff. You can do JavaScript down here too. You can just literally say I times there is equal, you can say there th equals this, and then you can say th. So I mean, you can actually do JavaScript right in there. It's kind of neat. It is not witchcraft. It is programming, and it is incredibly fun. So that's one of the things there's 2 things I really love about programming. Is one, I get to create something. So Melissa will come to me and say, Darren, we need this website to do this, and I want people to submit this, interact this. I love creating something that will accomplish that task. The other thing is I love manipulating all this stuff, because you can do anything. You know, I could take these, and when you click on it, they can switch places. I mean, it does anything. So yeah, I mean, I absolutely love it. So please give me a rating for the class. Let me know if it was too hard, too easy. Send me emails, call me if you want help. I didn't get into PHP. I kind of wanted to, and I may do that in another one. But I'm gonna
in the fall, Darren, you could do that, tag on to that one and do in the fall.
Yeah, I love this stuff. So please rate the class, talk to me, email me. And I think Melissa has something to add now.
Yes, before we go, I want to mention Workday, one of our gold sponsors. Workday is a leading provider of enterprise cloud applications for finance and human resources, helping customers adapt and thrive in a changing world. Workday applications for financial management, human resources, planning, spend management, and analytics have been adopted by thousands of organizations around the world and across industries, from medium-sized businesses to more than 45% of the Fortune 500. For more information about Workday, visit workday.com. Also, if you would go and visit Workday at our vendor booth, in our virtual vendor section. And I want to thank everybody for tuning in. And I think they were mesmerized by you, Darren.
Yeah, I'm going to go through and answer a few of these questions if you hang around a little bit. But yeah, Notepad++, a great editor. Visual Studio is a great one. Vim is a great one. So for the most part, a span is an inline, absolutely. It wraps around its content, doesn't add space. This is 100% correct. So those divs and those spans will do some default things, and that's exactly right. 100%. Let's see. With Ray of ribbon and for yours is red. Yeah, so I have a couple little typos there. If the CSS has different value, we answered that already. Good stuff. The worst class. Whew, Jeff is a tough crowd. Yep. Where on the page? Anything you want. My typo there, I was using balance of HTML. Great. Some coding. Awesome. Excellent. And then for you guys, if you right click on this and inspect something, it's going to open up your world to all sorts of stuff. You're going to see the actual HTML that was used to create something. So if I go to this website here and I inspect it, I can see the actual HTML that was used to create their website. And if you look, it's just like I did. They have a label. They put the color in CSS. They put the border color in CSS. They gave it margin. See, they gave it margin right. I just gave my margin left. Same thing. So you can see how somebody creates it. And you can learn from it, because you may want to go, how in the world did they get these things to be colored? Well, you look at it and you go, oh, well, there it is. They use the color. And then you can go in here and you can change it. So you can actually manipulate somebody's web page. It doesn't change it for everybody else, right? It'll just change it for you. But you can go through and see, well, what happens if I increase the margins? Oh, that's what happens. So you can play with somebody else's website to figure out, how did they make a round picture? How did they do that? So right here, border radius 50%. If I decrease the border radius, see what happens? Picture square. But as you increase the border radius, it does that. And then if you go all the way to 50%, well, obviously it's going to be a circle. Kind of cool. So you can play around with other people's websites and figure out how they were able to do it. Even the scroll bar, they did something funny too. You have to dig around for it, but it's in there. Angela, great. Any other questions?
Good session, Darren.
Oh, good. Thank you. Thank you. Melissa, in case anybody else asks from NCLGISA, I am running away right now, getting my son's sports awards. So I think we're all done with the conference, but in case you guys need me, I'm running out the door now. So everybody, thank you. I appreciate you coming.
All right. Everyone have a good one. See you tomorrow.
Bye-bye.